Hi Kaveri, how are you?
Hi, Mansi. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good too. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on completing the foundation program on behalf of the Wonder Girls team. Thank you so much for taking your students through this journey.
Thank you so much, Mansi. I think it was a great opportunity that I enrolled in this year for me and for my students. So I would like to thank you and your team for providing us with this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll let the team know. Why don't you tell us something about yourself to begin with?
I'll start a little bit about myself. I am Kaveri. I have finished my bachelor's of architecture. I was working as an architect for 3 years, post which I joined the Teach for India Fellowship. And since then, as a part of my fellowship, I have been placed in a government school in Ahmedabad, and I work primarily with 7th and 8th graders. Um, and yeah, since then I've been a passionate educator. I am continuing after my fellowship, which ends today. I continue with Teach for India as a recruitment manager. So that has been my trajectory so far.
Okay, nice. And what excites you the most about teaching?
I think the entire idea that you can be around students where where they're brimming with a lot of hope and enthusiasm is something that fascinates me as an educator. And I think time and again it's been my source of energy to move forward in the work I do. And yeah, that's something that motivates me about teaching. Also, I think through the course of my fellowship, I've been equally passionate about the public education system in India. And I've because I was working in a government school, I got the opportunity to explore various facets of it and understand what are the issues that or what are the challenges that plague the public education system, which is why we see some outcomes and we don't see others. So that has really been my motivation to join the fellowship and continue it for 2 years. Yeah.
And what is it that you know that you found as the strongest thing in the public education?
I think the best part about public education system is at least, and I would say this for, I know it's different across different states, but I think the point that it is free and it makes it accessible to even the poorest of the poor is one of the facets that fascinates me. And at the same time, nowhere in these 2 years have I felt that the quality of education dips because you are working or you are employed in a free school or you're receiving education in a free school. um, the systems, I know that they don't pan out really well in the execution or the implementation, but we really have a strong foundation of a public education system in our country. A lot of it, the structures, the vision and everything is in place. Unfortunately, the implementation is not. But yeah, I think I'm hopeful and an optimist that things will change in the near future.
Yeah. I'm sure if we have teachers like you, they're going to get better. So it's all thanks to you. Oh, and by the way, like I've studied architecture too. I graduated last year and I made the
Oh,
to education as well. So
oh, brilliant! I'm so glad to see another person make that move. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, can you tell us something about your students?
Yeah, sure. I Most of my students, so I have about 53 students. Um, Most of them, I would say, belong to the low income communities, and a lot of them are migrants to Ahmedabad. So they've migrated from nearby Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, or UP to Ahmedabad many years ago, and they've stayed here. Their parents majorly work as auto drivers, daily wage laborers, or own small shops here and there around the school. That's the general demographic of my school. I think majority of my students have been Muslims because Rakhyal, where my school is placed in Ahmedabad, is a Muslim dominated community. um, that's a little bit about the community. I think with regard to my students, I have been very lucky to have a good bunch of, I would say, highly motivated students who are very curious to learn. They they have that dedication in them, where they just want to learn. You don't have to really invest them towards education. They're already there, because they are from a very, I would say, they're from the lower rung of the low income community that we speak of. There are other challenges that they need to grapple with on an everyday basis. But I think, in spite of all that, what I've seen, as a rampant pattern in the children of my classroom and my school in general, is that they're extremely resilient. They are very curious, and over the past 2 years, especially over the last 1 year, because we've all been through very difficult times, and so have my students. I've collected a whole lot of anecdotes, which which have which I feel like whenever I am in the low phase of my life, I would like to go back to them to kind of seek inspiration and move forward. So I would consider my students as to be my main source of inspiration that way.
Can you share one anecdote with me?
Sure. I think, this is an anecdote that I've spoken about a lot of times. Um, I remember, so when we transitioned this year, particularly because we had to operate in an online model, um, in a class of 25 students, of whom I'm the parent teacher, I remember that about 8 of them did not have any device in their household. So they did, they did not even have like a basic phone. Uh, about 10 of them had a smartphone, but there was one smartphone being shared by 6 or 8 members of the household. And obviously internet data is scarce, and all those things fall in place. And I was really wondering how I would do that, because when I looked at all the data from my classroom that I had collected in terms of access for devices, I realized in a class of 25 students, 19 of them would not be able to attend an online class, either because they did not have a device at all, or because there was no internet, or because the device was shared by too many people, so they would not get their hands on it. And I was wondering how to kind of navigate through the entire situation. And this was way back in August, when we were still understanding what the lockdown and everything looks like. And I just started this thing where I realized that, okay, most of my students, even if they don't have access to a smartphone, they do have access to like a basic phone, somewhere or the other. Like they could borrow it for an hour or something, and it was a whole lot of investment on our part as well. But I remember this one particular student who did not have any device, and she lives slightly away from the rest of the classmates, and her family does battle extreme poverty. And when I told her that we're going to have this sort of a class on phone where we bundle them up in groups of 5 students each, and I would do a basic conference call, give them a couple of instructions, ask them to do something, and each class would run for about 45 minutes. And I had 4 such batches, so I could on any given day I could cater to about 20 students, and this one girl was still left out, and I was wondering how I would try and integrate her into the system, which is when she told me that, you know what, I can manage. And I was wondering how she would do it, because I had tried everything in my capacity to make sure that some device is accessible to her. And she told me, you don't worry about it. And I said, okay. And next day, her class timing was 11 to 12, and 10:50 she messages me on WhatsApp, please call me on this number. And I was wondering that where did she get her hands on the phone. And I can't tell you how happy I was, but when I called her, I made the first call to her, because you need to join calls. And I asked her, how did you get access? And she told me, I am at a relative's place. And I was like, okay, where is this relative's place? And it's about 2.5 kilometers from her place. And since that day in August, I still remember it was about 27th of August or something. That girl, till we gave her, because of Teach for India's entire device collection drive, till then for about 2.5 to 3 months, that girl used to walk to their relative's house 2.5 kilometers one way, and in the scorching heat of Ahmedabad, just to attend that 45 minutes of class. And she hasn't missed one day of class. I kid you not, I can show you my attendance record, and she hasn't missed one day of class. She would finish the class at 12 o'clock, do the homework by 12:30, send me pictures, and then walk back home. And I was just amazed at the resilience. I don't understand. I mean, if you ask me to walk like half a kilometer to get a packet of milk because I want coffee, I would be reluctant. I would be like, okay, let's Zomato, or let's not have coffee at all, you know. But yeah, that's the kind of resilience that I saw in students, where they were willing to, you know, convince their relatives to let them have their hands on the phone for about 1 hour, just because the classroom was their happy space. And which is something that I realize now, because today is my last day at the fellowship, where I see that, you know, kids are upset that they don't no longer have the classroom and they have like a vacation. I mean,
Wow.
throughout Diwali, throughout other holidays, I have been like, I need a vacation, guys. We cannot have class every day because I need to breathe. You know, I need a day off just to detox myself, just to tell myself that, okay, I need to get out of this group because I have 10 other tasks at hand as well. And I think, yeah, that's just the beauty of it, where you see that they are just curious to learn, and it's really not about me. It's not about that they want to come to Kaveri Didi's class. It's just that they are so curious. They really want to learn, that they are willing to do anything to make the most of any resource that you give them that helps them learn. So I think those have been my positive anecdotes throughout the fellowship. And you know, I had like in a class of 25, I had 8 children who were working full time right up till January. These are 14-year-olds, 13 and 14-year-olds, and they would go to their respective workplaces. These were factories, these were shops, these were garages, these were I don't know, all these sorts of places where we see young kids working. They would reach these places at 9. Our class starts at 10. I had to speak to some of the shopkeepers to convince them, and 10 to 11:30 every day they would be at their workplace, huddled up in a corner, have their headphones, the tablets that we had given them, and attend class, finish their homework in the afternoon from 2 to 3, because that's usually the lunch break given to most workers, and then go back to work and work in between till 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And I don't know, I mean, I just feel proud of having such an enthusiastic bunch of kids, that I feel like anything and everything, whatever we do seems like an understatement for kids who are so curious, so resilient, so willing to give it all and, you know, take it from you. So yeah, these are just few of the anecdotes that I've managed to
Yeah.
collect over the 2 years.
Yeah, and I think like just in a time like this, just looking at such resilience is so important because we're all like in our homes and so disconnected. But when you hear such things, it gives you hope. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, yeah, it does. I mean, there have been days where I have not felt like I want to wake up, because yeah, because times were very difficult, and I've still made sure that I don't miss a single day of class, because then my kids are really sad that why didn't we not have class. Like I would literally beg to them ki please kal class nahi karte hain, and let's just let me just rest, or let me take a day off. So I think, yeah, that's really kept me driven throughout the year.
yeah. Thanks for sharing. So, why did you sign up for the foundation program? What were your expectations of it?
I think one of the foremost things which I realized, especially in my classroom, and that was very evident, was so I have 17 boys to 18 to 8 girls in my classroom. So the ratio is already pretty skewed, and it's, you know, I have read a lot about this, or you see those stats where you are like, okay, you know, in grade 1 mostly parents enroll both their girl and boy child, but as you progress up the grades, the number is skewed, the ratio is really skewed. And I saw that in my classroom, and I think when I started seeing those things in my classroom, I did understand how it was panning out in their everyday, how they would think differently because they did not have the exposure of interacting with another gender as such, right? And like I already mentioned, most of my children belong to a Muslim minority, where the cultural dynamics are very different from what I would experience in my household, right? So looking at all of that, I saw that, these kids really needed strong female models, especially my girls. They were outperforming boys in academics, or in terms of resilience, or in terms of a lot of other things. But when you ask them if they have that confidence to get, to pin down somebody, and to make sure that they are able to hold themselves, uh, I saw that missing, and that was really heartbreaking for me. Which is why, when I saw this opportunity where it spoke about that there are female role models who are going to talk about their respective careers, I think it was a wonderful idea of exposing the children to something that they had never witnessed before, because they've seen us as teachers, but that's it. That's where the bubble ends. They don't know how far women all over the world have, how much they have struggled to reach where they are. And they don't really have a sense of role models. So I think that was one of the primary reasons why I enrolled them for the Wonder Girls Foundation program. At the same time, because they are in grade 8, and last year as well, when the other batch was in grade 8, we did like a career exposure series, just to help them align themselves to grade 9th and 10th. With my particular set of students in Gujarat, the government school, English medium government schools, end in grade 8. So in grade 9, essentially, they transition out to another school, and where I'm not sure if somebody will put in the kind of effort that we need to put to make sure that a girl child stays in school, because every time I have to change, get parents to move their children to another school from grade 8 to grade 9, it's been a struggle, honestly, because marriage is a very important factor. They don't see the purpose of investing money, because all this while, for 8 years of their life, they were never paying for their girl child's education, and suddenly now 1 year, when you ask them to shell out 4K or 5K for the girls' education, it becomes a bone of contention for them. So I think that way. And I don't want to be the sole driver of this entire thing, that of telling parents that your girl needs to study. The girl really needs to tell her parents that I have to study, right? So it's important to instill that confidence within the girls that we have. At the same time, equip the boys to handle the change that the girls are going through, because they are they often see their sisters, but they're not very cognizant of what is happening to them. And knowingly or unknowingly, they end up meeting those same gender biases on their sisters, on their female classmates, on their teachers also sometimes, because they've been conditioned in a particular way. So I think the idea of it being a career series for students of this age group, and it being centered around female role models, was seemed like the perfect combination for me, and that's the reason why I enrolled for the program.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And what was your experience like of the program as a teacher?
I think it was pretty seamless for me, because every time we take up a project, to be very honest, we all go through this cycle where initially we're all very enthusiastic, and then the enthusiasm dips, right? Especially because most of these programs that we end up enrolling with, which are in addition to the work that we do, are a whole lot of prep on our part as well. And given that we all, and when I speak as fellows, we're all stretched pretty thin that way. What I loved about the program was that I didn't have to I didn't have to give it a lot of time in terms of preparing. I could, maybe 2 days or 3 days prior to the session, integrate parts of what was going to be spoken, maybe about the speaker, maybe about the career, in my classroom, in one of the morning meetings or one of the closing circles that we have every single day. And that was pretty much it. And then I could send across PDFs or articles for the kids to just read and get familiar with the idea. But it was not very intensive on my part, and at the same time, it was able to achieve the objective that it is able to that it is designed for, which is essentially understanding careers from a female perspective, right? So it was very seamless from my end. It was minimal effort, which is something that I loved, and still it had a greater impact than something else would have. Yeah.
And what do you think was the experience of the students? Like, what have they shared with you? What is something that you've noticed in them?
Um, a couple of things that some of the students did share with me was like I already mentioned that I have a bunch of very curious learners, right? So they had umpteen questions. And what I saw as a major shift was, even after the sessions, they would drop a WhatsApp message or come back to class the next day and ask me that, this was mentioned in that particular session and I didn't quite understand it. And sometimes when the sessions happened before, and I consciously try to establish connections within the classroom later in their academics, kids who attended were able to establish those connections as to what it means to be from that particular profession. And I don't know which particular session that was, but then there was one particular session where I don't know how the speaker got talking about friction. And because she was explaining some technicality of something, and I think 3 weeks later we were doing friction in the classroom, and I was asking for examples of where we have witnessed friction in our everyday life. And one of the students happened to mention that, and that's how I believe where learning happens. It does not have to be dependent on me or the textbook, but these are all unconscious ways in which kids pick up these small things, are able to establish those connections, and have a better understanding of what they are doing. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it has impacted them. Overall, the students gave me great feedback about a lot of the speakers in terms of how they were really patient in answering their questions, because sometimes even I lose my patience while I'm answering questions, where I feel like, oh my god, why do you have so many questions, and I don't really have the answer to everything. So it's always great to invite fresh perspective on those things where kids um, are able to ask questions in the forum. Something that I also noticed is, which I believe a lot of our kids learn unconsciously, is they learn how to conduct themselves in a professional manner. With us, those lines are slightly blurred, but I mean, post that, we did get a lot of other people to our classroom for various other tasks. And I saw them conducting themselves in a particular manner, because, we had briefed them from the very beginning that when you're attending these sessions, you're going to raise hands, you're going to do this, you will frame your question well in advance. And so things like that. So then they started inculcating those habits, right, for other speakers as well, which I believe is a very subtle but a very powerful way of impacting children. So that has been my summary of
Yeah, yeah,
how the kids have been impacted so far.
yeah. I think that's really nice to hear because out of all that we're hearing, this is also important. They kind of, learn to groom themselves in a way to kind of present themselves to others. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. Would you recommend our program to other teachers?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, like I said, because it's really minimal effort. I mean, apart from signing up and uh, making a Zoom link, and probably you know uh, you touch base with kids on the career professions that you've chosen. Apart from that, it's really no effort. Especially teachers who are in the higher grades, who are in the secondary grades, say grade 8th, ninth, and 10th. This becomes a very easy channel to get that career perspective, to get that importance of education in the classroom. And sometimes more often than not, we don't like listening to people who we are around all the time, right? We feel like, okay, this advice is, it's too boring, or this person keeps talking to me. But when it comes from an outsider, it has a very different impact on you. So that's one of the reasons why I would definitely recommend the program, because it's very low touch on the educators side. At the same time, it has an impact on the students. I've already spoken in depth about the module, and so it's a win-win for everybody. So yes, why not? Definitely would recommend it.
Thank you. And you mentioned about how the students basically after grade 8 need to kind of enroll themselves into like a paid or educational system. So do you feel like they're more motivated to get into that, or do you look at a shift over there because of the program in any way?
So I'll be honest here. I haven't really mapped a shift to kind of establish that sort of a conclusion. Um, but I do believe, and I say this with experience with the same set of students, where they recollect the sessions, the workshops that they have had before, maybe in class 6, class 5, by by somebody else who came to their classroom, and that does leave an indelible impact on the students, especially if something that is what they connect to. Like I remember having a session with I think Dr. Anjali, who's a dentist,
That is.
and yeah, and I don't know, we were doing something in the classroom, and then we were sharing about careers. Basically, we were just talking about our dreams and everything, and one of the students happened to mention that I want to be a doctor, and somebody just put her down saying that what, you can't be a doctor because you don't score well in science. So just brushed it off like that, and I let those conversations happen very organically in my classroom. And another girl kind of stood up and she said that she can be wo, if you remember from Anjali Didi's session, she said ki unko bhi, she did not score a lot of marks, so she couldn't get into an MBBS degree, so she got into dental, so wo bhi to doctor hi hote hain. So I mean, that is the kind of positivity, or that is the kind of conversation that you're expecting in a classroom. So I do believe that there has been a shift. I have not been in a position to map that shift, unfortunately, but I
Yeah.
definitely do believe that it
Yeah.
has been made.
Yeah. No, I think anecdotes such as these really help. Like, do you think there are any other anecdotes that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I remember, I think the last session was with Rachita, and she was talking about the food and beverage industry, and my kids could not get a hang of it, of what is this food and beverage industry which is being spoken of. And so this was a conversation that happened after the session, where I explained Rachita's profile. I told that her father is Sanjeev Kapoor and he established his entire empire and other things, and then they started making sense. And then somebody just asked ki, तो उनको खाना बनाना आता है या नहीं आता है? And I said, I don't know. I mean, you should have asked that question to her. But all that I know is that if it's something about food industry in general, or at a lot of, I would say, middle class or upper middle class homes, uh, I don't know about now, because now there has been a burst of challenges. But I think if you ask 5 years, 10 years down the line, or when I was probably your age, Khana Khazana on ZTV was the only show that was aired in terms of food as such, right? Which taught people how to make something new, especially Chinese and pasta and I don't know whatnot. So I told them that maybe she does not know how to make food, but she was very instrumental in deciding what was put on my plate for every single day that year. So you need not know every skill on the surface of this earth. The point being that you need not know everything to be able to do something, but you can leverage what you are good at and go forward. Maybe Rachita does not know how to cook, but she definitely understands, and maybe I know how to cook, but she definitely understands the food and beverage industry much better than I do because of her experience, because of her skills. So I think it's important to drive those points to kids as well, that uh, another very beautiful thing I think that happened because of that entire thing was where we just where I just said that Sanjeev Kapoor is a chef and he's a male, right? And he cooks. So it's the gender aspect of cooking that comes into place, where you say that it's not just the mothers who can cook, it's also the fathers. And this girl is able to you know she's able to take forward her parents empire, essentially because her father is a chef, which is a gender which is a which comes as a breakthrough for most children, because they do not understand that males are chefs in most professional spaces. But they were like, oh, is that the case? I thought we thought that Rachita Didi makes food. I was like, no, she doesn't. Maybe she doesn't, because she handles everything else apart from the food, but maybe she shoots her father when he is cooking. So that's sort of a very different or a very opposite gender dynamic also came into play as a result of all these experiences.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another anecdote that I felt like
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I think I did share a couple of suggestions that you could take forward in terms of if you could have like a plan beforehand, so that we can integrate it with our curriculum, because then it makes a lot more sense for us to connect those pieces and take it forward. And also, it, it helps us in showing kids the purpose of education, because more often than not, I remember as a child where we felt where education was about studying, it was about securing marks because you needed to go to the next grade. But when you start establishing these real life connections is when you are actually interested in education. Investment though is not a problem in my classroom, but then it really motivates and pins those
Yeah.
students
Yeah.
uh, to be
They
dedicated
see
and
it
to
is
kind of
different.
explore.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see that difference. So I think
Yeah.
that's one big suggestion. But I think you guys are doing a fabulous job making it very easy for us to bring something of this sort into our classroom, and in a very low touch accessible way. And yeah, I think it's brilliant that kids as young as sixth grade are getting the exposure to what a career is, or how to build a career, and how to talk to people from different walks of life, just to make sense of what they could do when they could grow up. I think I wish I had more opportunities like this when I was growing up. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I wish I had them too. Like this all began really late for all of us somehow. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing. And we had a wonderful time working with you. It's been great. You've been really good in terms of coordinating the whole thing and, giving us feedback on what works, what doesn't work. So, thank you for all of that effort. And we really hope to collaborate with you in the future as well.
definitely. I look forward to that